Welcome back, y'all. So it's no secret there's tension between the Royale High and MonsterVerze community, but things have been getting worse over the past couple of weeks. Recently, Royale High players accused MonsterVerze of copying a hairstyle. However, the discussion escalated after a Royale High developer sent out a tweet saying, "Never beating the allegations." As per usual, the most toxic people came out of their crypt to start slamming MV and harassing its players. Eventually, this led to the owner of MonsterVerze, Peach, to do something that a lot of players felt was unprofessional and harmful to the game's image. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, there's a lot I want to get off my chest when it comes to both Royale High and MonsterVerze, specifically the communities. Like, all of this was very unnecessary. Besides the drama, I'm also going to discuss the current state of MonsterVerze as a whole. However, I do want to say something real quick. I know some people might not care, but I personally don't want to crap on a small new game, especially as a content creator. That doesn't mean I won't have negative opinions. It just means I'm not holding them to the same standard as a game like RH or DTI, considering these games have been out for a couple of years and have thousands of players. Now, after the game has been out for a year, my expectations will be higher, but for now, I'm going to give it time. It's literally only been a month since it released. That doesn't mean people aren't allowed to criticize the game. All I'm saying is be fair and constructive. Anyways, before we start, please do not send hate towards the devs or anyone mentioned in this video. Or in other words, keep it cute or you'll get the boot. Also, for those who are wondering, the Zvezda video will be out later this week. I just wanted to have a little video out for y'all before then. With that, let's go ahead and start with the first section. On November 23rd, MonsterVerze dropped their weekly update. In this update, there was a scene collection that had a bunch of different outfits as well as new hairstyles. But what caused the drama was this new hairstyle called wicks. The first thing that started the drama is that people are saying these are not wicks, they're Liberty spikes. There was a lot of people from both the Royale High and MonsterVerze community arguing about whether it should be called wicks or if the name should be changed to Liberty spikes instead. However, this became a bigger issue later on because people started saying that MonsterVerze was stealing hairstyles from Royale High. I saw a few people talking about it, but it didn't blow up until one of the Royale High developers made a post. This developer's name is Genva, also known as Gazing Jen, and they pretty much quote tweeted a post from MonsterVerze News that said, "Never beating the allegations." For those who don't know, Genva creates a lot of hairstyles for Royale High. He's very talented and he's been a part of the Royale High team for a while now. This is also the same developer who was not being paid for his work. If you want all the info, watch TTRH's video on it, but pretty much Genva was creating a ton of stuff for Royale High and still had not been compensated. After the story went viral, the devs did end up paying him, from my understanding. This sounds super irrelevant, but it does get brought up later during Peach's Twitter space rant. Now, after this tweet, I started seeing so many different hate posts from these specific accounts that are supposedly Royale High players, but all they do is crap on MonsterVerze, and they were talking so much trash about the game and just being very hateful. But there were RH players that were genuinely wondering what was going on with the hairstyle situation and wanted a response from MonsterVerze. At first, I didn't understand why this developer made the post, but apparently the hairstyle that was copied is actually one of the hairs they created for Royale High. People were putting them side by side and saying they looked exactly the same. However, I personally feel like they do look different. The only similarity that I'm seeing is the gems, but the shapes of the spikes look completely different in my opinion. I personally do not think they copied. Now, with all the discussion going on the timeline, this led to Peach seeing the tweet that Genva made. She then quote tweeted it saying, "The concept of hairstyles from my culture being brought up in the debate is crazy." Peach then gets on Twitter Spaces, which for those who don't know, is where people can talk while an audience listens, similar to a Discord stage. Now, the space is about 20 minutes or so. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Pretty much what I did is I listened to it and I wrote down notes as to what exactly she was talking about. If you want to listen to the entire thing, it's still up on her Twitter page. Honestly, I suggest y'all go listen to it for yourselves. That way you can form your own opinions. Anyways, the space is titled Gems and Culture Vultures, and at the beginning, she starts talking about what wicks are and what Liberty spikes are. She says that gems on hairstyles isn't new and that Genva's hairs aren't unique or original. They are hairstyles hairstyles from the Black community. Peach then starts talking about stuff that happened a couple of years ago between her friend group and Jen's friend group. Back in 2022, Peach said that her and her friends called out gazing Jen's friend Lotus for making microaggressive comments. Jen and the others try to defend their friends, saying the stuff Lotus said wasn't racist, and it seems like later on Peach and her friend group decided to forgive and forget. Peach then starts saying how the hairstyle is all over Pinterest and it's not Jen's original work. She also talks about Moye and how they used to be friends but they're not anymore. Peach then makes a comment saying instead of Jen being worried about being paid, she decided to be on her page talking about everything, and then calls her a bootlicker. Says her and all her friends are always beefing with Black people. She then provides these screenshots. This first screenshot is from Discord and it seems like everybody made up after the situation. Gazing Jen sends a heart and Beyonce says, "Is there anything else we'd like to talk about? Let me know if we're all good." Gazing Jen says, "As for me, I think every bump has been flattened out. Is it possible for me to leave this chat now, since it wouldn't be needed for my presence to overshadow currently occurring situations?" Someone says a message saying, "Yes, Jen, you're good as for me." Gazing Jen says, "Awesome, thanks guys." The next screenshot shows a message from Emoji that says, "Well, it's because you are/were in the Coven GC, so we would assume you knew what was going on. Silence is violence, as they say." Gazing Jen says, "To be honest, the Coven is mostly for calling and playing games. Nothing else really occurs there, nor does perspectives about situations like that get talked about." Amoya then says, "So how do you decide when to call? You obviously chat. That doesn't seem like the full truth." Gazing Jen responds, "I usually come home from school and when I'm bored I tag everyone to call." Peach also showed another screenshot where Gazing Jen is responding to somebody and it says, "Let me first clarify that I do not recall stating that I had dropped Lotus. We did, however, have holes and breaks in our friendships during the controversial peaks. Is what Lotus has done something I support or encourage? Certainly not. This was not something I let slide. I made sure he knew how I felt and I highlighted his flaws. I rekindled my friendship with Lotus after realizing how much our friendship meant to us. Most of the friendships I have built after years extend far beyond Royale High. It's my choice whether to forgive him or give him a chance, so I won't force others to do so. My friends don't deserve to be ignored, so I do not wish to screen them off." Now I'm gonna say this, these screenshots are missing a lot of context. All we have is what Peach said, so I'm not too sure what exactly happened, what Lotus said. All I know is that Peach is saying Lotus was making microaggressive comments and Gazing Jen was kind of just allowing it or accepting it, pretty much saying that he didn't call out the situation. And then Peach is trying to say like Gazing Jen decided to be friends again with Lotus even after what they did. I don't know though, I wasn't there. These screenshots don't really say a lot. This is pretty much all we know. Now I'm gonna be honest, I feel like if the topic would have been approached differently, people would have not been upset about this space. I think it's valid for Peach to feel upset that people are accusing her and her team of stealing. I also feel it's valid that she brought up the microaggression situation that occurred back in the day between Jen and the Coven, because it happens often that Black creators are made to feel like they aren't allowed to speak up or like they need to get over things. The issue with the space is literally just the approach. A lot of MonsterVerze players felt like this was unprofessional. Personally, I believe this should have been handled differently and more carefully. When you're in a certain position, you do have to be mindful of how you speak to your community and others, especially when you're a part of a team. I understand there's a lot of hate coming towards MonsterVerze and it's frustrating having to deal with that every day, but the moment you lose patience, you're giving the haters exactly what they want. The majority of these posts are literally rage bait targeted at MonsterVerze players and the devs. They want them to react. They're literally praying they struck a nerve. Lastly, I do want to mention that Peach and the devs are pretty young. I believe Peach is in her 20s and other devs are either in their teens or in their 20s as well. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I do feel like it plays a role into some of the decisions. They're still learning and gaining experience, so there's going to be mistakes. Either way though, if you're someone with a platform, you always need to be cautious about what you say and how you say it. Also, there are times where you should just not respond. It's not worth it, and a lot of the times your response is just feeding the trolls. When it comes to addressing allegations or controversies, you definitely want to take your time creating a statement and focusing on the issue at hand. Like all the stuff about Jen and his friend group would have been better as a separate conversation, since it would have been solely focusing on that rather than multiple issues. But that's just my opinion though. However, I do feel like now, because of how the Spaces situation was handled, a lot of people are just ignoring that conversation altogether and are just saying that Peach is unprofessional, and this is the downfall of MonsterVerze. Now I will say this, I still love MonsterVerze and I believe the game can succeed, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on. With that, let's go ahead and move on to the next section. The first thing I want to talk about is VIM. I and a lot of players are very confused as to how it works exactly. However, in the Discord, they did provide an explanation. It says, like we mentioned, we've now made more clear how VIM works for those who were confused. VIM is a one-time purchase game pass that makes you start from level 8 all seasons. This way, whenever a new season starts, you'll always start from level 8. Ranking up VIM is only possible by making in-game Robux purchases, such as Goolers or game passes. If you own the VIM game pass, you'll need to spend a total of 400 Robux to reach level 10, meaning level 9 is 200 Robux and level 10 is 200. If you don't own VIM, all levels are 300 Robux. So based on what Peach said, it seems like the seasonal game pass is based on a game she used to play called Cocopa Play. I'm not too sure, I've never seen it before, but apparently this was the system they had as well. And if you ask me, it's a pretty bad system. I personally don't like it. I have VIM. It was gifted to me by somebody in the community and I was super confused as to how to level it up. Thankfully, I was able to get to level 10, and the only reason why is because I was gifting everybody game passes and things like that, and also buying myself game passes, but I can't do that for every season. I'm happy you at least start on level 8 if you have the VIM game pass, but the system itself needs some work. I feel like that's not, I don't know. I just don't like how it works. Now, this is not me saying that the devs shouldn't get paid for their work. Of course, I believe they should earn some money for all the work they do, but the way that VIM works right now is just not a good system. Now, another complaint a lot of people have is regarding the lack of gameplay. For those who don't know, they did recently add the runway competition mode, which is fun. However, there's a lot of AFK players or people just farming, so it's not fun when you go down the runway and literally everybody's like AFK farming, so you'll just see the same outfits over and over again, and then I think half of the time people aren't voting. Hopefully they find a way to fix that issue in the future. Now, in a recent announcement, they stated a major update wouldn't drop this Sunday since they're focusing on the combat update for the game, which I'm super excited about. So we are getting progress. However, I do see a lot of people saying they wish we had like a roadmap to see what the updates are supposed to be like. Personally, I think this would be a great idea. I understand it might not be something easy to do, but it would be cool if we had a way to know what type of updates are coming up, or just a timeline when certain things are going to be in the game. I've also seen some people feeling like the updates are unplanned, or like the devs don't really know what they're going to do for each update. They just kind of do it off the top of their head. Personally, I don't feel like that's true. I'm pretty sure they do plan it out, but I do feel like a lot of the updates do focus on like new clothing sets, and at this point I'm just more interested in the gameplay aspect than the clothing. Don't get me wrong, it's all beautiful, but I genuinely am waiting for more gameplay. Still though, I am glad they are working on certain things, like recently they added the NPCs. Now, another common concern that I've seen people talk about, that we talked about a little bit in the previous section, is professionalism. A lot of players say that sometimes the communication from the developers and mods isn't the best. I've seen it a few times where somebody says one thing and it turns out not to be true, and then it confuses the community. There's also been times where mods respond passive aggressively to the community, which obviously makes people upset. Then there's people who say the devs don't take criticism well, which I'm gonna be honest, that's something incredibly difficult to learn. Even if you've been in the space for a while and have been dealing with criticism nonstop, there's gonna be moments where you might not handle it as well or take it as well. The game is still pretty new, and I feel like the MV team will learn to be more professional over time, but I genuinely do hope they're seeing this specific criticism and making changes now, especially since the game blew up a bit. So many big creators have been making videos on it and it brought a ton of attention, so there's a lot more eyes on the game. Now that we're done talking about the issues with MonsterVerze, let's go ahead and move on to the next section and talk about the Royale High and MonsterVerze community and how toxic they've been recently. So even before the release of MonsterVerze, the Royale High community has been dogpiling the game. Actually, let me clarify, it's not the entire community, that's not fair to say. But the worst people from the Royale High community are always the loudest, and their posts spread like wildfire. Pretty much after the Wix hairstyle situation, all I would see were hate posts talking about how MonsterVerze barely has players, and how the game is going downhill. Like literally, it was almost every other Royale High related post I saw. And the sad part is, these posts have have hundreds of likes and interactions, which helps trolls get more traction. Even if someone comments under the post trying to defend MV, it unfortunately rewards them with more impressions. I think the most annoying part is that every time I think I'm done blocking these dumb accounts, like 10 more spawn. Honestly, I'm convinced at this point that these people don't actually play Royale High, they just claim they do and constantly make the community look bad. Now, one thing these troll accounts love to do is say that the MV community is just as toxic. And they'll show these two screenshots. The first comment says, RH players are just jealous because Royale High is a dead game now. Like, oh, who said that? And the next comment says, wouldn't it be funny if we started mass reporting Royale High? Now, just to give context, these comments are in response to a video talking about the MonsterVerze ban, where a person who claimed to be a Royale High player confessed to mass reporting the game. Even so, these comments shouldn't have been made. I remember before MonsterVerze was released, a lot of people would say this game was gonna end Royale High, which funny enough, people make the same comments when talking about DTI and ChatDaw. And honestly, it's really annoying. Like, why can't we like more than one game? Literally the majority of people that play MV are Royale High players and vice versa. So the constant fighting between both communities is silly. I don't know what it is about dress up communities, but it's a hot mess. It might just be a Roblox thing, I don't know. But how can innocent games like these garner so much negativity and toxicity? Royale High has been doing so well recently, and I'm happy that the team is communicating with their fan base again. And MonsterVerze is still pushing through even with all the negativity surrounding it. I genuinely hope this weird feud ends between both communities and both games can continue to grow. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about MonsterVerze. Are there any concerns you have with the game that you hope get fixed? Also, what do you think about the RH and MV feud? Is it valid or a waste of time? Okay, bye. See you in the next one. Bye. Okay, bye. See you. Bye.